Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us again for Marketing May. This is Amanda here from State Listings. I know you usually hear Dave on these, but again, since we are doing a marketing series all month, we thought it might be a good idea to have our Director of Marketing running them. Hi. Today we are going to be talking about what to do with your stale listings. I know that right now, while the real estate market may be slower in some areas, some of you who manage to move listings really quickly might be kind of struggling with what to do with this for the first time, or maybe you're working on a more difficult listing. And this topic actually came up because of a really long conversation I had with one of our members who was wondering why her listings were getting a lot of views but weren't selling. And we talked about some strategies to help make your stale listings feel new again and hopefully get those sales, especially now as the summer selling season is hopefully right around the corner. So to start, we're going to talk about how to rethink your listing. One of the most commonly missed areas of opportunity that I see is your marketing text. So here are a couple of do's and don'ts from somebody who started in copywriting. Don't skip writing a description. I see way too many listings with a blank description, and that is however many characters of just free additional marketing space that your MLS and syndicated sites are giving you. And if you're completely skipping over any marketing description, that's probably why some of your listings are sitting on the market longer than they should. In addition, you shouldn't repeat information that viewers can see in listing stats. So I'm talking about form fields that you fill out. So the number of bedrooms, the number of bathrooms, the year of the property, like different fields that you've already put in the listing. I know on our MLS and on many other sites, those fields show up first. And especially on sites where you have a limited amount of space to write your marketing text, don't waste it on stats that those users can already see. Like I said, those are already highlighted. Likely those were already their search criteria, so they know how many bedrooms and bathrooms there are. And don't include your contact information. Many sites don't allow this, and it'll prevent that description that we're going to talk about, how to spend some time on it and really make it great. It'll prevent it from sending out to syndicated sites. Many sites will replace it with just, this is a 4-bedroom home. What you should do, consider your description an important part of your marketing efforts. As I said, this is an additional free marketing space to really highlight the best aspects of your property. In addition, consider asking your homeowner about their favorite parts of the home or the neighborhood, things that you might not have gotten just from a listing appointment and from a quick look around. Highlight features that aren't immediately obvious from photos and the rest of the listing. For example, as I mentioned before, ask your seller what the favorite part of their neighborhood is. For example, I live really close to a really amazing just tea shop. The owner's super friendly. They let people stay there and work however they want. They have free Wi-Fi. And obviously we couldn't see that from the listing information, but it's become one of my favorite parts of my apartment. And you should use romance copy. So for those of you who aren't copywriters, romance copy is the part of a product description that appeals to the consumer's emotions. For example, if you've ever seen maybe an ad for a certain kind of shampoo, it's not talking about the kind of soap they use. It's talking about how it'll make you feel, how having good hair will improve your life. That's romance copy. It can include short stories, a catchphrase, testimonies, or other creative descriptions that don't necessarily have to do with the straight statistics of a product. It's called that because it's used to romance potential leads. You're trying to make people fall in love with the listing. So romance copy for your listing could include an imagined scenario for potential leads. Again, that's where your favorite parts of the house, favorite parts of the neighborhood come in. You could say, imagine waking up to a beautiful sunrise, and then going to the neighborhood yoga studio, coming home to your spacious living room, things like that, that let the buyers, especially now when they may not be able to visit the property in person, that let them fully put themselves into the home and fall in love with what their life would be like if they lived there. In addition, you can share the history of the home if you have a historical listing. I know that was really effective for a listing I saw that was like 1800s farmhouse. They talked about all the history that happened there, and it was just so engaging. And I believe sold on the first day that it was on the market. And in addition, as I mentioned, it can highlight any nearby amenities, help people really imagine what their full lives would be like if they lived in that neighborhood rather than just in that home. The next part of updating your listing marketing is your photos. If your listing isn't selling well, Take a look at your photos and ask them, are they up to date? Are they well lit? Do they give buyers a full picture of the home? So for example, if you're just taking maybe the front exterior photos, or if you're just taking a photo of one angle of each room, they're not really getting the full picture of what the house looks like. Are you focusing on the best features of the listing? And do you have the rights to use these photos? Again, in some places, this will prevent the listing from syndicating, or it can cause problems for you down the line. You can't use professional photos ordered by another listing agent, because likely the professional photographer they hired or that listing agent holds the rights to those photos and can have them taken down. You need written permission from the copyright holder, whether that's the listing agent or the professional photographer. In addition, Google Maps and Property Shark photos are copyrighted. You cannot use those on your listings. You need to take your own photos. In addition, it just looks less professional and it doesn't give buyers the full view of the home they really need to imagine themselves there. One other thing that I didn't mention here, but we've talked about in the past, is that your photos should all be horizontal. Vertical photos are not flattering. I know it can be really difficult in, for example, narrower bathrooms or kitchens. I live in a city, I get it. My kitchen is basically as wide as one human being. It's hard to get a horizontal photo of it, but with a bit of creative work with your angles, you can figure it out. And those will always make the space look a lot more open, a lot more spacious. If you said no to any of these questions, hire a professional photographer if at all possible. In some areas, especially if the property is vacant, photographers may be able to start going back out, getting to listings, getting you professional photos. It's really amazing how much difference just that little bit of a photographer's eye can have. If you're not able to and you have unoccupied properties that you can safely get to, take them yourself. And again, if the property is occupied, you can have your clients take the photos, and even being on a video call with them at the time, because you as the professional, as the agent, know what buyers are looking for and can direct them on how to take the best photos possible. So again, we created the Remote Agent Guide, which has information on how to take better pictures, how to take video walkthroughs, and how to edit those. And I really highly recommend giving it a look and download that after the webinar concludes. As I mentioned, the Remote Agent Guide also has information on how to film virtual walkthroughs and then how to edit them. I should note, by the way, I didn't say before, the Remote Agent Guide is a completely free resource. We just really wanted to help agents who are doing their best to still serve their customers and stay in business throughout a really confusing time where we're all dealing with a lot of changing regulations. So that's a free resource that we've created here, and you can download it anytime, whether or not you're a member. That has information on filming virtual walkthroughs. If buyers can't come to your listing in person, like I mentioned in New York State, we're still social distancing for about another month, maybe longer, they still need to get a full picture of your home. If the property is unoccupied, you can film a virtual walkthrough of the home, highlighting the best features. In that guide, we include information on how to add background music. In addition, you can film a voiceover, so you can bring attention to the best areas of the home that may not be as visible through photos, through written descriptions, and through those listing stats. If the home is occupied, again, you can ask your sellers to film it, sending them the tips that we mentioned before, and then you can edit it yourself, because depending on how technologically savvy your sellers are, there may be several minutes of fumbling with a lens cap, taking the video horizontally, things like that. So we have information in that guide that I mentioned that's linked in the chat on how to then edit the videos to make sure that the best parts of the property really shine. So if your listing has been sitting on the market for a bit, it's likely that it may be time to ask for an extension or consider a price reduction. So my question is, what additional marketing do you do for price reductions? How do you promote them when they happen? How do you talk to your sellers about them? What do you do? So for price reductions, I have a few steps that I usually follow. The first one is during the listing extension meeting. No seller's usually real excited that they need to be signing a listing extension, but you can use this as a time to really spend some time with them, get them re-energized and excited about that listing extension and about what you're going to do next to really make sure their home sells. You need to prepare a marketing plan ahead of time that's showing the additional steps you'll take to market their home, which we'll talk about in just a moment. And while you're on the phone with them or Zoom meeting or however you're communicating, take this time to schedule any necessary photos, videos, and virtual open houses, because this will show them those next steps that you're taking, help get them excited for the new material about their home that's going to go out and how you're going to keep promoting their listing. Finally, make sure that you set metrics for success, especially in a market right now that's pretty unpredictable. As I mentioned, because of social distancing measures, some closings are taking longer, things like that. We're used to saying, oh, your home will sell so quickly, things like that. And that may not be the case as folks are taking longer to get financing, are taking more times to consider their options. So make sure that you're reasonable with your sellers about what to expect and set achievable metrics that say, my goal is to get this many folks to view the virtual open house, to get you an offer by this date, and talk about the steps that you're going to take to achieve that. Once you've secured the listing extension and the price reduction, you really need to make the most of that price reduction. So if you're just logging into the MLS and putting in the price reduction and calling it a day, that's not going to, if someone's seen your property before and passed on it, reducing the price a few $1,000s likely won't change their mind. So when you go in to enter the price reduction, here's the other things that you need to do on your listing. The first thing is to change the front photo. So many people fall into the trap of assuming that the outside of the home is the best place to start. But if the outside of the home isn't attractive, but the inside is absolutely beautiful, that's where the buyer is going to be spending most of their time anyway. And if you can really front load the listing photos with beautiful photos of an updated kitchen or a really cozy living room or like gorgeous sunny bedrooms before they get to the outside, that gives them more of a chance to fall in love with your listing and really picture themselves there, and makes it so that you are more likely to receive that showing request. Make sure your photos are seasonal. It's May. It's still time to remove those snow photos from your listing. Make sure that the photos are bright and updated and springy. So you should add new photos to the listing when you're doing a price reduction, when you're doing a listing extension, if possible. Update your marketing description. As I mentioned, you should use previous tips to rewrite your marketing text. Make sure that you're using that romance text language that we discussed before, so that you're really making sure that any potential buyers have the chance to see the property through the owner's eyes and really imagine themselves there, imagine what their lives would be like, rather than just seeing, oh, does this have as many bedrooms as we want? Check. Bathrooms? Check. In addition, you should highlight any upcoming open houses, which you should schedule. We'll review tips for how to schedule a virtual open house later in this presentation. But I want to highlight here that just because an open house is virtual, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be promoting it just as much as if you were there in person. Of course, you might not be able to have balloons and branded water bottles or cookies for everybody, but you still should be highlighting it on any social media presence you have, in any emails you send out to leads, anything like that. Make sure that you're still putting as much effort into open houses. So why do all of this? I know the obvious answer seems like, well, it presents the property in the best light. But in addition, when you put a price reduction on your listing, it comes up in the hot feed, it comes up in saved searches, it comes up back at the top of certain syndicated sites for folks who may have already seen your listing before and decided to pass. Like I mentioned, a few $1,000s price reduction might not be the tipping point. The problem might have been that they saw the outside of the home and didn't even bother to scroll through your photos because they are turned off by it, or the marketing description just wasn't engaging or didn't have enough information and they didn't feel like they could reach out to you. Changing up your marketing can influence those buyers to take another look. Unless they visited the property in person, if they just passed by it online, they likely don't remember the address of the property. They're more likely to remember the front photo and to remember any standout marketing text. So those buyers, if you switch that front photo, switch up your marketing description, are more likely to give your home, your listing, another look, which may get you buyers who, again, didn't scroll very far in your listing photos before, just saw maybe one or two and assumed it wasn't the home for them. Giving them those indoor photos up front or more interesting photos up front gives you another chance to grab their attention and a second chance to have them request a showing. I'm getting a question, how much of a price reduction do you recommend? That really depends per listing, per market, and that's something that you need to discuss with your sellers. So one of the best things you can do is do a CMA again and see where listing prices and sale prices are in your neighborhood right now and give a recommendation to your sellers based on that. So finally, one of the problems that a lot of folks are having if their listings are stale is just not getting enough attention on their listing. Many folks are struggling with social distancing who may have done more traditional marketing in the past. For example, may have done cold calling, may have done, again, more in-person open houses, more in-person negotiation, have been struggling with how to get attention to their listings from a distance. So I want to know, what are you doing right now? How are you marketing your listings from a distance? Is everything the same? Have you added any new tools since the beginning of stay-at-home orders? How are you getting that attention? So let's talk listing visibility. Your listing should be on your website. You should have one. We've discussed this in the past, but I will talk about the importance of having a website, having an online presence any day of the week. Your social media, which again, definitely important. Your MLS's IDX feeds. I see a lot of folks turn this off because they don't want their listing showing up on other agents' websites. Maybe they want to get both sides of the deal, things like that. But when your listing's been on the market for so long, half of the commission is better than none of it. And it's additional eyes on your listing that you might not be getting otherwise. Any little bit of exposure helps when you are committed to getting your listing sold. Your listing should be on national syndication sites. Double check with your MLS, see where all of your listings are going. And your listing should also be on international syndication sites. And I see a lot of folks not selecting international syndication because they're in an area where they think, oh, well, we don't get that many international buyers, it's not worth it. Or, I don't really know how to work with international buyers, things like that. First of all, you might be surprised by how many international buyers are looking in your area. If you're unsure if you know how to work with international buyers, if you are a New York State MLS or MyStateMLS member, we do a lot of our international syndication through List Globally, who have found that in many areas, international buyers will be able to communicate, or they'll have a relative who already lives in the States who can help. And in areas where they found that buyers have more trouble working with local agents, they actually have a concierge service that will sort of be the go-between between you and those buyers. In addition, aside from international buyers, many local buyers use international sites so that they can search in their native language. So for example, I know that one of my colleagues will talk about some of his family members who mostly speak Spanish, will look on Spanish language sites to find listings, to search listings in their native language. And again, those are local buyers. They're just trying to make the search easier for themselves. And our international syndication sites will translate your listing into the native language of the country that they are syndicating in. For example, again, if you're a New York State or MyStateMLS member, Samaki.com is a New York City / Long Island area site that will translate your listing into various dialects of Chinese. I believe they are working on or recently implemented Vietnamese as well, and are working on other languages, things like that. So it's really important to have your listings on those international sites, not just for international buyers, but to better reach local buyers who just might not speak English as a first language. Finally, we reviewed this in our previous webinar, but I wanted to talk here again about virtual open houses. If you have vacant listings that you're able to access safely, now is a wonderful time to perform those virtual open houses. So for a virtual open house, a few tips to make sure you really make the most of it. Make sure that you prep the home and your presentation the same as you would for an in-person open house. That means staging, that means giving tips to your client to declutter the home, to really make it look open and inviting so that buyers can imagine themselves there. As I mentioned before, make sure you are advertising on your social media and any emails that you sent out. If you don't have a social media presence yet, we reviewed how to start one last week. In addition, you can create a flyer or brochure if you are a New York State or MyStateMLS member. we actually have a custom brochure print where you can enter any additional text, you can change the colors, you can drag and drop photos to highlight different areas of the home, and then you can save that as a PDF. Obviously, right now, it's a bit more difficult to give print flyers because many of those folks won't be at a physical open house, but you can offer to email it to any viewers who seem interested in the home. And in this way, it's almost a little bit better than in-person open houses because this is a great way to collect leads. Then at the specified time, go live and begin a walkthrough of the home. Again, this is pretty similar to listing photos. A lot of folks can fall into the trap of starting in front of the front door, starting in front of the home, when there are so many more interesting parts of the house. Again, I was watching a presentation from a few agents who have been doing a lot of virtual open houses, and one of them talked about starting in front of the fridge because this fridge made ice cubes shaped like boats. Like it had an automatic ice cube dispenser that just made shaped ice. And that was just such an interesting and unique feature that she started there because it's so easy to click on other videos on Facebook and on pretty much any video platform because they want you to spend more time there. They want viewers to just click through video after video. So you don't have a lot of time to capture attention. So start with something fun and interesting and take a look at the outside later in the presentation, unless there's something really wild and fun about the outside of the home. Engage your audience. Encourage them to ask questions, answer them, and ask questions of your own. Again, this is about grabbing attention and also builds a connection with the listing. Finally, unlike an in-person showing, with virtual open houses, you can tailor a virtual showing to just highlight the best features of the property and really spend time on there. Likely when you have a visitor to your open house, if you're not assisting another potential buyer, you can walk them through the home and you can show them. But with virtual open houses, you're really able to give a guided tour of the home. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll be live one more time this month for Marketing May before we resume different webinar content. You can find our webinar schedule right again if you click that resources page at the top tab, drop-down menu at the top of our homepage and click webinar schedule. Next week, we'll cover how to become the expert, how to really find your niche in the market. All right, I'll talk to you guys then. Thank you so much for joining.